Association. Magazine. He has proven to be an incredible anchor for YouTube channel Satya Asatya Ardhasar. Overall, his personality speaks all about fighting against odds like corruption, media, politics, and social issues, and particularly on public policies. Today, Mr. Manohar will be sharing his expertise and insights, which would be both enlightening and thought-provoking, offering us a deeper understanding of Viksit Bharat at 2047. We are truly privileged to have you with us today. Now, I would like to request Sanjay sir to felicitate Mr. Manohar Manoj sir.
As the topic is very much before you, and you actually has already introduced myself. What am I, and what is doing right now. And first of all, I would like to say one thing. My lecture is not a routine kind of lecture, which you generally get from your class teacher, and generally you deal with all the syllabus of economics. And actually, my work is to just enlighten your outlook, just develop your perception and perspective of different economic issues of the country. So generally, I am an economist, but my professor is journalism. So I generally deal with all those economic issues which cater to our day-to-day life. You can say this is Indian economics, this is a public economics, and all the economic issues related to our contemporary arena, with whom we generally discuss and do our work in terms of writing, speaking, etc. So, students, this is the topic: need for a new employment policy and synergy between growth and employment for Viksit Bharat at the rate 2047. We all know we are ushering in Amrit Kaal, and our destination is to achieve the diamond jubilee of our independence. And by that diamond jubilee year 2027, we have to become a Viksit Bharat or a developed economy. We have a clarion call has been given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This would be also one of the Modi guarantee. We will get the tag of developed economy by year 2047. So you students already know that we have already got the fifth largest economic tag of the world, and by 2027 or 28, we will become third largest economy of the world. First of all, I would like to say a few words about employment. You know, employment is a perennial issue, and from very beginning to even since independence, whenever we have a debate in our public domain, so mostly three topics were being concentrated, and those were: first, inflation and price rise; second is unemployment; and third is corruption. These three issues, this is a triangle issue where all public discourse and debate revolve around. And most of the political parties, they have taken these three issues to just counter the incumbent government. And talking about unemployment, I would say that unemployment is so many types, it's so many perspectives. When we talk about three sectors of GDP, three sectors of economy, we know the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. And the first is deals with agriculture, second is industry, and third is services sector. And that services sector generally deals about the issue of employment. One thing I would like to do that I have made some notes for you, and then I can categorize this discussion in a very classified manner. That will be beneficial for you. Talking about employment, I would say I would say the employment. First of all, we should know what is the means to eradicate and eliminate poverty. As you know, till 1989-1990, our central policy of all economic administration was centered around to work for omitting hunger, to work for omitting unemployment, and just try to distribute all income and wealth equally among all. But the problem was that whenever the economy was going on and our growth rate was not adequate enough, so that government could get sufficient amount of taxes, sufficient amount of revenue to just transfer those resources toward the all informal sector, toward the rural area, toward the agriculture area. And 80% poor people cannot get advantage unless and until government transfer resources in terms of rural development, education, health, and etc. So till 1990, we have a Hindu rate of growth. This is a very popular term which is generally being taught in the classes of economics. And that Hindu rate of growth was only neither 3 or 3.5%. Because most of the areas, government was the investor. Government has to invest, government has to establish many public sector, government has to build infrastructure, government has to build all amenities of social welfare and development. We all know the infrastructure has a main two parts. First is the physical infrastructure and second is the social infrastructure. Physical infrastructure includes roads, railways, telecom, electricity, and social infrastructure includes all sorts of human development in terms of education, health, sanitation and nutrition. So government was the sole investor, government was the sole entrepreneur, government was the model entrepreneur, government has to protect internal and external security also. But government can't remain as a business agent. So till 1989 it was seen that the ideology of socialism and communism, which compelled government to go for the nationalization of so many activities. We nationalized our banks in 1969. We brought so many regulations in our economy, like license, permit, quota, Raj Act, very at its very peak level. But since 1980, the air of liberalization get injected into our economy. First of time, we opened up some things for the private sector, for the multinational sector. But when 1990 came, there was a big era, starts since 1990 and 1991, that was called as the new economic policy. And the new economic policy was nothing but it's a bunch of reforms. And that was based on 4 pillars. You all know that was the liberalization, marketization, that was the globalization and privatization. These 4 pillars just directed new economic policy. And since 1991, we regarded investment, all sorts of investment, whether coming from the domestic player or coming from the global player or the international player, in terms of any hot money coming in terms of FII in a stock market or FDI in terms of new industry and factory houses. We opened up so many areas like automobile, telecom, roads, railways, etc. Time to time, we just brought so many areas under the automatic group. We picked up investment limit till 49, then we increased it to 75%, and in many areas we picked up 100% FDI route automatic route. So what we get, we have a higher growth rate since 1991. And we just ushered into the era of high growth path. And when government achieved high growth rate, then government has a more revenue. And when government has more revenue, then business gets started, when investment gets started, when a high growth rate, every cycle of economics gets started. You know that is the prompt priming term initiated that was told by great economist Alan Keynes. And that was the prompt time the government has to invest first if it is coming under depression or it is coming under recession. But since 1991 we have a huge investment because we allow private players in terms of liberalization and privatization. Many public sector undertaking which were not doing good, they were just running as a white elephant. And we injected competition from the private players.
area, in every consumer electronics item, a domestic company has to face a multinational company, and multinational company has to face competition of the domestic company. Then consumer was the winner. We have a very cheaper these durable goods. We have a higher tax revenue in the pocket of integrity of government, and then government started to allocate more money for the informal sector, for the rural development. We have more agriculture, rural roads, rural health facility. Then after 2000, government started one under UPA regime. Government started Manrega kind of program, that was the employment program for the rural people. So I would say, talking about employment, it is very necessary. I just given you a picture of the India's journey to development and high growth rate, which basically started from 1991. And before that, we were driven by the ideology of communism and socialism. So there was only slogan for the poor, for the rural development, but there was no enough money, there was no enough resources, and there was no enough investment. But since 1991, we just adopted the theory of trickle-down theory because that was the more practical. Because earlier, the government was the investor and government had a huge bureaucracy that was not productive, that was not very punctual. And it was a big debate started that doing business is not the work of government. So since 91, we have just another era, the paradigm shift in terms of development. The left and the socialism ideology was converted into that sort of capitalist ideology where investment has to come, more and more production unit has to be established, and more employment opportunity was there for the remote and rural areas of the several parts of the country. And so all the migration of labor got started from the labor surplus states of the country like Bihar, UP, Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. And they have a work opportunity in the several industrial centers of the country, in Ludhiana, in Surat, in Trichy. So many industrial and metropolitan and state capital area, there was a huge demand of labor. So that was one of the means of creation of employment. You can say in this way. So then we talk about employment. We talk about generally three types of employment. Employment for the daily casual workers, employment for the semi-skilled and some kind of artisan workers, and employment for full-skilled, full-educated and urban population kind of job. So that is called as the white-collar job. And first is called the blue-collar job. First is the called, you can say it is another term, that is the unorganized workforce, and second is the organized workforce. So then employment can be divided into two. So since 1991 we saw there was a generation of employment in many industrial centers, in the many parts of the India where investment came and it generated employment. But when we talking about employment, so we should say that there must be gainful employment. Gainful employment means if you work something, you must also get pittance. You must also get pittance in a sufficient amount. If you don't get sufficient amount, it means it's not a gainful employment. Talking about agriculture, it is generally said 60 to 70% people are dependent on agriculture, but agriculture has no enough productivity. And we see in the 365 days, only 30 to 40 or 50 days, people get employment in agriculture because it is seasonal affair. So rest of days they are unemployed. That is why a term is used that is called disguised employment. In saying they are employed, but in real terms they are not employed. So talking about employment, we must also know that our 50 to 60% people are dependent on agriculture, but they are contributing only 15% to GDP. There is a huge imbalance. 60% is contributing only 15%. It clearly means that their life standard will not go up. And they have to face all kinds of tangi and tabahi. They have to face lots of hard difficulties and all because productivity is not there. So we have to create such kind of circumstances where people have a 365 days of employment. We right now the education is going on regarding legalization of MSP. So I would say, since there is a huge imbalance between the income, so one agriculture family, if they have a 5 member, one person has to only take cultivation. Another person has to indulge himself in some other sorts of business, in sorts of any job, kind of police man or army man, in terms of any trading, local trading, in terms of any small kind of industry, MSME kind of thing. Then we have a diversification of agriculture population. And also, there must be the imbalances the gap of imbalances that can be lower, that cannot remain voided. Because when we diversify our dependent population on agriculture, there will be additional source of employment also. Now, I am going to tell about the other dimension of unemployment. Generally, it is being said, and since 1980, the debate is going on. You don't use mechanization, don't use technology, don't use any kind of, you can say, rationalization kind of thing. Because India is a population abundant country, if you follow such kind of policy, economic policy, it will create unemployment. I think with the time and with the passage of time, this debate lost its meaning, because it was well proved that even the mechanization of agriculture, even the all sorts of implements, agriculture implements, when its usage got increased, we saw there was not a lesser possibility of man employment. I am giving you an example of Punjab, where largest number of tractors are there. They have around 10 lakh tractors combined and all sorts of modern equipment machinery. And they are the largest employer of the rural laborer, agricultural laborer. You see, most of the laborers go to where? If they have to do some agricultural activity, they go to Punjab, they go to Haryana, they go to Himachal, etc., etc. Even they go to Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So, mechanization cannot lower down the scope of labor employment. And in rural area, I am talking about Bihar, where the very abundant rural population is there. But since labor got migrated, what I see, even in those areas, farmers are not getting labor. They always say that we have a labor shortage. They have gone to some other places. I am ready to pay that amount what they are getting there. But they have paucity of labor. It means the demand and supply forces are very much operational in the labor market, in the job market also. And so this was well proved when it was said that the computer, don't use computer in the economy, it will create unemployment, because it will snatch the job of more than 30-40 jobs in one industrial establishment. But it was also proved wrong. When journey of computerization started in 1985, when late Rajiv Gandhi introduced this concept, and we have a organization like C-Dot and computer education, computer hardware production, computer software, then we have BPO, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, he provided so many facilities, leverages, incentives for the computer software and computer developing company. So since 1990, when this journey started of computerization, till now, India has become a superpower of computer software. And this is the sole area, IT, information technology and IT enabled services and PPO. It constitutes not only the major export share of the country, it constitutes the major share of the country's remittances, which is the $40 to $50 billion every year we are getting in terms of remittances. And we have become the largest remittance holder in the world, number one remittance holder. So, and this BPO, IT, computer software and IT enabled service, it is providing 40 lakh organized employment in the economy as a single largest. So, if you introduce new sort of technology, you talk about e-commerce. Huge employment being generated through all kinds of e-commerce activity, through Amazon, through Flipkart and so many e-commerce companies. You talk about all IT-enabled public transport services. It has become one of the largest sources of employment. So I am not saying that we have only good situation. I am just only talking about the nature of employment, where we can explore new areas of employment. How can we frame our employment policy, and how can we regard this employment as the largest measure to eradicate poverty. Generally, we see there is a free ration for the poor. There is a subsidized kind of Manrega scheme where assets are not created, only money getting transferred, and that is totally unproductive money. And bungling is also there. Only kacha work, only earth work are being done under Manrega, and they just got thrown away within a year. And people just distribute the wage amount between Gram Pradhan and the rural labor. So economics, the sound economics always say, if you have an investment that has some asset base, that some have a productivity, if some part of investment go in terms of wages and salary, that's okay, that's fine. Because the cycle of economics, it started when the investment is being done, then investment is being done, production gets increased, when production gets increased, then employment opportunity are created. When employment opportunity are created, then consumption gets increased. When consumption gets increased, then demands are being increased. And when demands are being increased, then it will allow more and more investment come in the market, and we have a cycle of economic gets revolved. Talking about employment, I would say that as I already said that we have three types of unemployment: agriculture and petty unemployment, unskilled and semi-skilled unemployment, and full educated and skilled unemployment. It is true, we have a unemployment. 3 to 4% people are definitely unemployed, and it's just a matter of chance or matter of, you can say it is a lottery. If somebody immediately gets employment during doing their course, doing their professional course. Nowadays, the linkage between the education and employment has become a very debatable thing. Some areas are very employment oriented, some areas are not employment oriented. That is a different ball game. But in policy terms, I would say, when economy has a very high growth path, then there is an autonomous demand for the more and more laborer, either in terms of skilled or in terms of unskilled or in terms of white collar job. But when growth rate gets down, when chips are down, there is no fresh investment. Entrepreneurs don't look very enthusiastic. They don't find any great potentiality and possibility of profit in the market, because when we talk about the private sector, this is the only motive of profit which drives them, which inspire them to go for the more investment. Several new areas are opening up. You talk about the green hydrogen, green energy. You talk about so many environment protecting areas. You talk about so many kind of IT-enabled services. There are many avenues of employment that has to be explored. But in policy terms, I would say that there should be, if we want to create a very robust kind of environment, we must have level playing field also in labor market. Because we generally talk about, you may have seen the report of Oxfam, how much inequality is persisting in our country. Some 67% asset added to 1% people, and only 1% asset added to 79% people. This is a huge inequality. There is a huge gap between have and have not. Haves are developing in a more speedy manner, and have not are developing, no doubt about that. But that is a very mild one. That is not very notable kind of growth they are getting. So I would say, when we talk about inequality, when we talk about unemployment, when we talk about poverty, we must have a one kind of environment for the whole labor market. Our Prime Minister always talks about one nation, one tax, one nation, one system, one nation, one system. Why not keep talking about one nation, one education system, one nation, one health system, one nation, one labor policy, one nation, one employment policy, one nation, one social security policy. I think so many islands have been created in this area. To talk about education, we have a variety of education system. Somebody getting their education in English medium, educated in vernacular medium. Somebody in Tat-Patti school, somebody getting education in the high class, 5-star corporate kind of school, which have a ranking system, and their benchmark has been already created. If we want the man-made inequality to meet and just demolish man-made inequality, we have to cater only one education policy. Because nobody gets his registration for being born in a very big family kind of Reliance and Ambani, Adani, Simlasani, or any very famous political family, or any very famous or film star family. Nobody, it is not in their own hand. It is just matter of chance. Who is being born in whose family. But when you come to the living world, when you come to the system, then you must have an equal treatment. And that treatment reflects in your educational system. Now we talk about health system. We have a plethora of system. There is no any uniform and a universal system, health system. Somebody has to go government hospitals and भेड़ बकरी की तरह लंबी लाइन लगो 4 घंटे 5 घंटे रहो कोई some go to the 5-star hospital and get their immediate health checkup and all. So we have got a uniform system. And to talk about social security, somebody is getting 1 lakh pension. The 5% organized government jobs are demanding their own pension scheme where they can easily get 1 lakh per month pension. Government has already changed this system and they have created NPS system in 2004 onwards. If someone joins the government services, that he will be not liable to get the old pension system. So, because we have to think about other 80 crore people who are living in rural area, they are 60 plus people, they are handicapped, they are widow, they are widower, they are not capable to work. So many ailing persons, so many social security liable persons are there. We are providing only 400 per month to them, and that is also not time. They are not getting their old age pension at every month. कभी 4 महीने पर, कभी 5 महीने पर. So I am somebody just forcing government to just go for the old pension system and provide them more than a lakh and etc. as a pension only. This is a huge burden on the kitty of government. So I am talking about one health system, one education system, one social security system, and now I come to the employment and the labor policy. To talk about the labor policy, we have two words. One of the organized workforce that constitutes only 7 to 8% working population, and another one is the unorganized, whose wages is not linked with price index. The government is doing so many endeavors. But since they are not organized, they don't come under the ambit of the government policy. So they are not able to all sorts of working conditions. They all sorts of social amenities like the insurance for the accident, the welfare. There are so many labor welfare activities that they are not being able to get. So we need one kind of labor policy. Now I am trying to tell the another aspect of labor policy, that is called a permanent job, and the second is a contractual job. Government provides contractual job also, but they have a better working condition than that of private sector. Private sector may not definitely when you will be hired and when you will be fired. So that is why we need a one sort of labor policy applicable in both government and corporate or private sector also. Because there are 3 types of labor. One is the daily wage earner and the manual wage earner. They have a minimum wage, fixation of minimum wage, but depends on the market. If government has fixed up 600 daily wage earner will be getting, but if market has only prevalence of 500, they are getting only 500. Another is the monthly job earner, but they are in some factory kind of job, they are paid to 10,000 to 15,000 per hour they are getting. They are also not fully organized. Any day they can be fired or any day they can be hired. And third is the white collar job, that is the organized workforce. 75% of that workforce come under the government sector. Because government is just a guarantee of a better labor welfare and better working condition. In the private sector, some big corporate company provide that sort of facility to their worker. Even they provide a better salary than that of government that they are very true. They have a bulk kind of situation. They have a bulk culture. They have a very practice culture. And they provide even more than that of government. But their productivity is linked with their salary and their bulk also. It's not like government, where there is no audit of any productivity or your deliverance is being done. It is just on the, in the burden of the government. They have to be, if you have been hired by government, it is, government is liable and compelled to provide all the contractual thing throughout your life. So that is the thing, the employment, this is the nature and the features of our employment market. When we talk about the employment policy, government is trying hard to provide more and more employment. And that is why the government always tries to talk about the high growth rate, the very pursuing kind of economy, a very that kind of economy which has always an investment destination, which always has a more and more income, more and more growth, which is a high growth rate. On quarter basis, you all students may be knowing about what kind of growth you have been getting in major areas. The art sector has been generally decided by government. Infrastructure, consumer electronics, metallurgical sector, like that. So when we talk about employment, there is a one term that I would like to mention, though I am not telling any more academic sort of things regarding economics. I am more talking about the applied side. There is one is the autonomous and second is the induced. The autonomous investment and induced investment. Autonomous investment means the corporate and investor is already able to inject more and more investment in the economy. He is getting all kind of leverages from the economy and he is able to invest. And second is the induced investment. If government has provided some sort of subsidy, direct infrastructure to a corporate player, so he just get induced to make investment because he feels he will be getting more return because government has provided that kind of thing. So same thing applies in the employment market also. When autonomous sorts of employment, when it happens, when we have a high growth, high sorts of demand, then the investor and industrialist trying to make more investment and trying to increase their scale of production also. And the induced employment means when government trying to create a मनरेगा kind of scheme, a special outlay. आजकल प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी जो है 1 लाख लोगों को एम्प्लॉयमेंट मुक्ति पत्र पकड़ाते हैं, तो कहीं कहीं वो एक इंड्यूस्ड सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग है. लेकिन वन थिंग आई वुड लाइक टू से, since we don't have a uniform labor policy, we don't have uniform labor policy. Somebody is on permanent basis who are lucky, and somebody on contractual basis, daily basis. They are not lucky, they are temporary, they are not temporary. And this thing is operational in several government departments also. In your college, in your university, so many areas, it is operational. And second thing is the any time you can be hired and fired. So generally what we see, I would like to talk about government sector. There are so many areas, so many schemes, so many programs, so many development activity government has to cater, whether central government or state government. And when they cater and implement all sorts of these schemes and programs, they need manpower. They need manpower. And when they try to hire manpower, one thing always hurts them. कि हम उनको परमानेंट और पक्की नौकरी देंगे तो ये हमारे दामाद बन जाएंगे, हमारे ये परमानेंट क्लेमर बन जाएंगे. And we can't do anything to it. क्योंकि legislation है, there is a rule, there is a job contract. तो आप उनका बिगाड़ नहीं पाएंगे. So they always fear for hiring permanent sort of employee. They always fear. I talked about in various government hospitals of Delhi. I talked about various departments where number of sanctioned posts are vacant. Sanctioned posts are vacant. It's a matter of debate that which post must be sanctioned or which post must be not sanctioned. Because government policy is to always create more and more employment, and private sector policy is to just if it needs 3 or 4 employees, they will try to take this all work with the 2 employees only, because they want to just profit surplus. And if they hire lesser number of employees, then they will have more profit surplus. It is only compulsion when they go for the extra workforce, because labor legislation is not very much implementable there, is not enforced. So they try to just exploit the labor force with more quantum of work, with less quantum of salary and job. And you may be knowing their cost to एक होता है cost to salary, CC बोलते हैं, CTS, cost to salary. So very major company like Maruti, Suzuki and etc. Whenever their employee gets educated, they always calculate what is the cost of company. And when they include not only the salary of employee, they also include the canteen cost, they also include the furniture cost, they also include all kind of amenity which has been provided to the labor force. And when they calculate the final cost, then they decide the what amount of surplus I am getting at each employee. And if they find that we have a sufficient amount of surplus or profit in each employee, then they try to increase their any pay and funds and other benefit. So it's a totally linked with their productivity. The job is totally linked with the productivity. But that thing is not operational in now. What I suggest, there must be employment audit. There must be a productive audit. If we have a productivity audit in all government departments, then we can know that our employee is not burden, rather is an asset. It's an asset for the organization. And he is contributing in terms of productivity, in terms of surplus, and it allows government or employer to increase more and more employment, to increase more and more activity. But that is not being done in the government sector. But at the same time, they are also afraid of permanent sort of legislation, labor legislation. That is why they don't provide pakka naukri and permanent naukri. They always go for the contractual job, where workers will not force them, workers will be not legally empowered to harass their employer. So there is a harakiri. There is a very lot amount of confusion, and that is operational in all government, whether in central government or in state government. That is operational in all party government, whether BJP, NDA or any regional party government. They don't want to create employment. First, I will talk about the government sector. In the central government, there are 8 lakh posts are vacant. 8 lakh posts are vacant in central government. But government is not showing their willpower. In the first term of Modi government, they didn't go for employment generation. Railway definitely brought out some vacancies, but that were not filled up. That were filled up in the subsequent month and year. In the second term, government is just distributing some appointment letter, just we know through the news. But in general, 8 to 10 lakh posts are vacant, but because of pakka naukri concept, they are not providing employment. That is why I am suggesting there should be one nation, one labor policy, and that must be based on the contractual policy, where fair treatment must be done for all. If I am a permanent job seeker, I may not be happy with this rule. But when we talk about country and the majority of population, I must surely support this policy, the contractual job policy, because government is provide contractual job that has a very good working environment and even more amount of salary also. I talk about Niti Aayog. You may be all economic students knowing about Niti Aayog. They hired professionals on a contractual basis and they provide salary even up to 3 to 4 lakh. Talking about government sector, and they are doing like a corporate activity. So these things that we must have a one policy. And now I am talking about the employment audit and talking about the central government. I will also give you an example of state government. 60 lakh job, sanctioned job are vacant in state government. They are also not providing income. When election comes, they just distribute the employment paper, and it was seen in Bihar, where the outgoing party RJD leader they just be told that I distributed 2 lakh appointment letters because this is election time. Posts are there, and I think providing job is not a ihsan. आप किसी का एहसान नहीं करते, आप किसी को खैरात भी नहीं बांटते। इट्स नॉट काइंड ऑफ फ्रीज थिंग्स, इट्स ऐड योर प्रोडक्टिविटी, ऐड योर एम्प्लॉयमेंट, it's better your implementation, it's a very good electric kind of work environment. So I talk about the employment audit so that we can search out where employment is there, where employment possibility is there, where posts are vacant, because most of our young lot wants to join government job, but our young lot is ready to work also, but that they must have a security so that they can get employees and they can go upper and upper. So employment audit is always needed. And talk about the private sector, corporate sector, unorganized force, the legislation must be fully followed. That must be well supported by government. Talking about this Modi government, let's sit down. Talking about Modi government in terms of employment policy, they relied upon two things. First, they were talking about self-employment. And it was very popularly said the Pakoda Kalo or job power. So many people are doing this, but unskilled, semi-educated people can do it, full educated people cannot go for this. Because we have many sectors of society. As I told, someone is unskilled, illiterate, some is semi-skilled, halfway trained, and some is fully educated, fully skilled, quite for the job. So three types of unemployed lot are there. And we have two sorts of employment opportunity. Talking about central government, Modi government, they talk about Mudra loan scheme. That is also a good thing. Creating entrepreneurship, making entrepreneurship, developing entrepreneurial skill is not a bad thing for the economy. And huge people belong from the state and city. It's a goal for the entrepreneur. People don't like to do monthly job here and government job here. Everyone wants to establish his own factory and all etc. etc. So when we talking about this Pakoda Kalo job, so Mudra loan scheme was very, it was given a top priority by Modi government, and it is being told that in the last 10 years, 42 lakh crore has been distributed as Mudra loan among 22 crore people. So it is popularly said that this scheme has been brought for the all members of BJP. They have a 15 crore member. They have most of the people, they have gotten the loan for doing some small business or medium business. And banks have provided loan. It is another story. If some commission and some corruption has taken place, out of 5 lakh loan, 50,000 were taken as commission. That's another story. But this is the figure which government generally provide, and it talks about the low scale self-employment. Now I am talking about the upper scale self-employment, and that is a very known buzzword called startup. And I don't criticize startup. This is a future vision of growth. As the computer was taken as a vision for the country, and so many things, our software power was taken as a vision. The Pakistan is bemoaning why we didn't do this, and India did this, and it became superpower of software, computer software. Talking about a startup, this is also a way to develop your entrepreneurial skill. I accept this. And now we have 80,000 startup. This is the third largest in the world. Third largest in the world. And it is creating definitely entrepreneur, and government is providing so many incentives, so many concessions, and so many fiscal incentives also. That is good. We are just trying to follow America. The free market economy we want to become. That's a good thing. But other than this, self-employment kind of scheme, 80% young people like to do job. And I am also one of them, because I started my own magazine, Economy India, as a media entrepreneur. But I have to face lots of hurdles. Because entrepreneurship is not it's a simple thing. It tests your so many qualities. It tests your marketing quality, it tests your investment quality, it tests your manufacturing quality, it tests your communication quality, so many things are there. So, developing entrepreneurial skill, creating self-entrepreneur, it's a very good thing. There are so many business stories of also we generally see on television. some 4-5 investors are there, and they have become inspiring element for the so many youth of the country. But I am talking about one who wants monthly job. There must have a clear-cut employment policy for the whole of country. The first, government has to provide and government has to fill up all its vacant posts on the basis of contractual working conditions and contractual job with a fair amount of salary and good amount of working condition. And second, there must be employment audit in both corporate sector and government sector. There must be no any vacancy get line, because it will be called a scene for the country. कि देश के लिए पाप कहा जाएगा कि आपके यहाँ पोस्ट खाली है, पैसे हैं और आप लोगों को एम्प्लॉयमेंट नहीं दे रहे हैं और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट की यूथ आदमी बना रहे हैं. So this is the thing, this is a policy matter which you wanted to elaborate and develop your outlook and create a perception and perspective about the macro aspect of our Indian economy, that is called employment. And talking about the employment, another thing I would like to say, many political parties demand employment goal for the youth class. And there is also a kind of greedy kind of thing which generally taking place in our country. You talk about any European country, you talk about any Western country, they also provide loan to their unemployed youth. But that unemployed youth don't get a loan with this loan, because he knows very well, whenever he gets employment, he has to repay that loan. So they always search for good job, they always search for creating some business kind of thing and earn their better bread and butter and livelihood. So we need that sort of thing. Now I come to the second part of this lecture topic, that is its synergy with Viksit Bharat and the rate 2047. I think the figure, the perspective which I gave to you, it has so many things which can create a very great employment destination in our country. We are talking about tourism sector. Tourism has a huge potential, and there are so many untapped areas. When we talk about Indian tourism, India is a cultural capital of the world, and variety of tourism are here. We talk about excursion tourism, we talk about the religious tourism, you talk about the heritage tourism. So many things are there. Just some time ago, Prime Minister went to Lakshadweep and he just promoted the sea coast. India is also a very beautiful sea coast. He just also rejuvenated the old religious sites like Ayodhya, like Ujjain, like Varanasi. I just visited Varanasi. I came to know when this Ran corridor get created. After that, 25,000 crore has been added to the economy of Varanasi. And Varanasi now is totally changed now. Varanasi has become one of the most vibrant cities of India. So many economic activities are going there. The agriculture, the tourism, the heritage, the medicine, health. It has become the health capital of UP also. So many things are there. I also would like to say, economists have to just trace out which area has a more employment potential. Something is that their investment is very high, but employment generation has a lesser potentiality. But when you talk about the health, establishing a health center or hospital, people are saying this is a man-centric affair. Their employment generation has a more potential. So these things have to be, that is why I am talking about employment audit. So when you talk about 2047, India has ushered into that era. India has to become a developed economy. So we are a human resource abundant country. We are the largest populated country of the world. We have a largest number of youth population. Then our human resource is not a curse, rather a tool. If we have a free trade of labor under the WTO regime, because we have already 2 crore NRI spreading all over the country, we are getting the largest number of remittances. If government, if a global country, if a global organization like WTO, World Bank and IMF allow free flow of trade all over the world, it is not the only PTO which compelled America to have more and more Indian people. This is not applicable in other countries because they find Indian labor cheaper. That is why they say that they will hire the Indian person. So if we open up the option on so many areas of employment which can make our economy, employment-centric economy, employment-centric growth, and we have a more utilization of human resources with a brilliant mind of its coordination with technology also. So when we talk about synergy with the developed economy, definitely employment will be the sole guiding element which will make our economy one of the most developed economy in the world. Because when we have a largest number of employed people, we have a largest size of income, largest size of saving, largest size of investment, largest size of consumption, largest size of demand, and largest size of more and more investment, whether come from the domestic sector or come from the external sector. So these are the things which I wanted to elaborate before you, and I already told earlier that I am not going to tell about any academic kind of thing, though I also belong to academic of economics, but I generally deal with the applied side of economics. And employment is a very burning issue, it's a perennial issue, it's an all-time issue. All political parties uses this employment as a sole criteria to just attack their rival political party. And so we need some kind of robust kind of employment policy which can have a more brilliance, not in terms of ideology, rather in terms of real gain, real benefit. We not only more and more employment, but we also need more and more gainful employment, more and more productive employment, and we have a very more and more opportunity for the employed people. I would like to give you one example, that is of Sahara company. Though this company is dying or it has facing very bad days, but there was a time when Sahara organization was doing more and more for employment generation. And they just go beyond their limit. If they had a need for 3 or 4 people, they provided more than 10, 12 or 15 people. I have been witness to that situation because I have worked in Sahara mass communication also. So these are the things, there are so many things are there, government player, private player, organized force, unorganized force, so many things are there, and now I would like to stand up because I am just summing up it. So we need a comprehensive, holistic and cohesive kind of employment policy which generally government and political parties don't want to talk about. When they want to create employment, they generally try to distribute employment, or they try to just avail employment to their key thinking or their follower or their supporter. But you frame a nationwide policy, we have to leave out so many odd things, and you have to create that kind of level playing field where fair treatment must be done with all according to as per their productivity, as per their eligibility, as per their quality, as per their skill and all. Last, I would like to mention Skill India program of Project Modi government also. They are trying to provide, and they just want to enhance the skill of labor also. That's a very good idea. But I think the interpretation has always problem when we talk about any government scheme. When government has a very high willpower, that scheme is being implemented in a very fair manner. But when there are so many activities are going on, we have not a very professional kind of work environment in government sector. So with this note, I just end up my lecture. And at last, I would like to show you my all those books, which will be coming. I keep coming in the library also. So you go to these books because they are very seriously written, well researched and well documented books. Though this is a book on corruption, but it's a treatment is linked with economics, society, polity, everything. It said against corruption on the neutral path. This is in 2 volumes. And it deals with each and every aspect of problem of corruption, because corruption of economics of corruption is also in a way very big thing. And second book is a dialogue on system change and initiative to make a new India, and that new India is of Amrit Khan, and from Amrit Khan to विकसित भारत काल यानी हीरक काल from platinum jubilee to diamond jubilee and from developed India to from developing India to developed India. So we have to provide a level playing field. That is the main question of us. Now I would like to request you to please go for the question, whatever, whichever, anything which you have a query, any curiosity, you please ask question. I will answer.